Hey guys, it's Drew. Thank you for checking out the Sober Fix podcast, where we talk about addiction and living life sober, one day at a time. If you like what you hear, go ahead and follow us. And if you get some time, check out our Instagram page at the Sober Fix podcast, and also our YouTube and TikTok at the Sober Fix. Hope you enjoy the episode. Hey, what is up, everyone? We are back. Another episode of the Sober Fix. We are at season 2, episode 17, and I'm super excited today. We've got Robert Pardon on again, a friend of mine who I met online and got to meet up with him in person. He was the full-on speaker at a speaker meeting, and I got to do the 10-minute, super cool, tons of knowledge. You guys will recognize him. He was on here before. And Robert and Michelle normally come on once a month. And I don't know if you guys saw the last episode, but we did the Ask It basket where I had both of them on. And they basically go to treatment centers, and they get to, the people that are in the treatment center get to ask them questions pertaining to recovery, the 12 steps, whatever questions they have for someone like Robert or Michelle that have a bunch of experience with this. Robert, how you doing, man? What's new? What's going on with you?
I'm getting old and I'm excited about every day of sobriety, but every day of sobriety means I'm getting a day older. So if I can figure out a way to age in sobriety, but not age chronologically, then I'm onto something real good, right? And thank you so much for mentioning Michelle. For those of you in the listening audience who don't know, Michelle is like my partner in treatment centers. And Michelle is just one of those dynamic individuals that you want next to you because she's authentic, she's real, she's newer than me, and she brings a vitality, an excitement, and an energy, and almost an informed innocence to the recovery platform that so many, and as a female, she can connect to women where I just don't understand, or they don't understand me, or a combination of the both. And so we really miss Michelle a lot, and hopefully she'll be back with us soon. We're excited about the opportunities that we've been given, and this is one of.
Yeah, it was so cool to have both you guys on the last time. And what is it like going into the treatment centers and being kind of the voice of recovery for them? Sometimes maybe the first person that they're hearing about 12-step stuff from. What is that like going in there and getting to talk to the newer people?
It's and that's a great question because there is a newness to it. You can't go in with a cockiness. You can't go in acting as if even though right, what it takes to keep sober. Michelle knows what it's like to stay sober one day at a time for consecutive years. I know you know, but there's nothing worse than feeling inferior. And so one of the things that Michelle and I try to do, and that you do in your walks, and anyone who is involved in treatment centers, we try to level the playing field. And we try to get them to understand, even though I've been around longer, at the end of the day, we're the same. And so we try to establish that as quickly as possible. And, you've heard the adage before, when people know that you care, they care what you know. And so we try to establish a level of caring and a level of understanding that they'll open up to us. And what we do, if your audience isn't aware, when Michelle and I go into a treatment center, it's similar to what we do here. We hand out pens and paper and we say, anonymously ask this question and turn them in. And then we'll go through these questions one by one systematically. And we'll answer these questions based on our own personal experience, strength, and hope, and things that we've heard in the rooms. And that, Drew, that gives the participants a sense of ownership. When people think they own something, they have a tendency to participate in it more deep and more readily.
Yeah, I totally can see what you're saying. I want to get into some of these questions. You sent me these this week, and what I love about this, it's people that are in treatment. And it's something that a ton of people that are newly sober can relate to. This isn't stuff that me and you just came up with and said, hey, like, what do we think people want to hear? This is straight from the source. This is from people that are starting off their sobriety journey for maybe the first time, maybe the third time, we don't know. But I want to get into that first one. It says, do you agree with the 12 steps of recovery?
I do. And, Drew, I always try to preface it with helping them understand that there's a lot of ways to get well. And, to your listening audience, AA and the 12 steps isn't the only path. It's the only path that's worked for me. And I know some of your story, and it's the only path that's worked for you and Michelle and so on. But it's the only path that works for me. So yes, I do. I believe in the 12 steps. Now, what I will say is whether it's rational approach, RAT, or whether it's EST, or whether it's Buddhist, whether it's a religion, every every path involves the same type of thing. Some with 8 steps, some with 9 steps, some with 12 steps. Everything is admitting. So I admit I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable, or drugs, or gambling, or pornography, or compulsive overeating, or whatever my addictive substance or behavior is. Everything comes with admitting it first. So if you're evangelical Christian, before you can get saved, you got to feel like you're lost, right? Um, if you're Buddhist, before you can know, you have to feel like you don't know. So these are universal thoughts. And yes, I do believe, for me and others like me, you and Michelle and others like us, the 12 steps is the only thing that worked for us. So yes, I believe them. I believe in the 12 steps like I believe in the air that I breathe. I believe that every time I inhale, I exhale. And every time I repeat that, I stand a better chance of living. And every time I work steps 10, 11, and 12 as growth steps, I stand a greater chance of living out my gratitude. So yes, I believe 100%, just like I believe that this chair is going to hold me up at least to the duration of our conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like that you mentioned some people get sober in different ways, but for you, that's what worked. And before I actually got sober, I tried every route. I tried living healthy, eating better, working out a million times a week. I tried going to counseling. I tried seeing a psychiatrist. I mean, I searched every possible avenue for myself to get sober besides the 12 steps. And it was the last thing that I tried and the only thing for me that worked. So I love how you mentioned for us, it definitely worked. But there's other people that do get sober different ways. I love how you answered that, Robert.
Well, thanks. And I what you bring up something really important. Because I'm sober, because I've chosen this path for over 38 years. My sobriety date is April 25th, 1986, which means I'm old. That means that more than anything. And here's what's really important about what you say. Because I'm sober and because I've chosen this recovery path, now I eat better. Now my counseling appointments are more therapeutic. Now I'm more in tune with God. Now I'm better at everything I try to do. Before I was trying to do this, I was trying to do that, and I was getting drunk and drunk and drunk and high and high and high and whoring around like I wasn't even married, right? And and now that I'm sober and I've got the sober path, all these other things I can do, and I do all those things that you mentioned, and I do them successfully because I start from a standpoint of sobriety that allows me to do those other things. So what you're saying is really true. When I was doing those things before, I was putting the cart before the horse. And the last time I checked, the cart is always better behind the horse.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it was for me. All of those things, which are amazing things to help people, continue their sobriety, change their life, increase their mental health. I was doing all those things, but I was missing the sobriety part. I was missing the main component. And once I added all those things into my life, once I had a program of recovery, I got way more.
Yeah, and because a lot of times when Michelle and I go to a treatment center, there's invariably going to be a person that wants to be a better husband, or they want to be a better significant. They want to be a better father. They want to be a better employee. They want to be a better son. They want to be a better sibling, right? They want to be all these better things. And Michelle likes to tell them, why don't you try being a better sober person first? Do that first, and then all these other things you'll automatically be a better husband, a better significant other, a better wife, a better partner, a better whatever. We're automatically going to be, because the program of recovery, as you and I and Michelle understand it, is a program of rigorous honesty, admitting we were wrong, making a commitment to making it right, telling others we're sorry, and then living and walking a path that demands a regular checkup that that gets my ego out of the way to say, I don't know. I guess I better learn. And then I go help somebody else, right? So when I do those things, I'm automatically a better whatever.
Yeah, it just improves everything else. I always kind of say it's the one decision that I made that improved almost everything else for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I would sign me up for that.
I want to get into the next question. It says, what is the best part of recovery for you?
You know, I was I was a failure at everything. I disappointed everyone. And I'm not a disappointment anymore. I wake up in the morning, I look forward to the day. Uh, I have friends. Both of my parents are deceased, but when they died, they loved me. They were so proud of me. I have, well, my second wife still doesn't talk to me, and that's okay. But my first wife, who is the mother of my two oldest children, she sent me a card. She communicates with the kids that Laura and I have. We have a great relationship. I mean, she's a wonderful girl, and she told me, she said, "Thank you so much what you've done for our daughter Carol." And she thanks me for my sobriety. So it's those kinds of things that, as I grow in my recovery, I have not all my siblings talk to me, but the ones who do, I had a brother who said to me at one time, he said, "Bobby, if we could have done anything, we would have done it. We just didn't know what to do." Now, he's such a dear friend of mine. It's those kinds of things, Drew, that, like, I always knew I could be a successful husband, not an adulterer. And I always knew that I wasn't the guy who walked out on his kids, but alcohol and drugs made that necessary. And I don't mean possible, I mean necessary, because we're no longer able to differentiate the truth from the false. Even it says in the big book, in the doctor's opinion, even though we find it so injurious, we can, after any considerable period, we can no longer separate. We try it over and over and over again. And so I think the biggest, and I'm reminded of this all the time, is the life I live now is a complete 180 from the life I was living before recovery.
Yeah, it's just it's so crazy to look back on sometimes. Sometimes I look back and I think about when I was just in active addiction, drinking, using, and I realize how much my life has changed because when I look back at what it was like in the past, or I tell someone a story of what went on years ago, it almost feels like I'm talking about someone else. It's a very
Yes.
strange feeling, and almost as I'm telling them the story, and their face looks kind of shocked, I'm even thinking, "Wow, it's my life has just changed so much that talking about some of the past stuff, it just feels so weird. It feels like a whole 'nother life." Does it feel like that for you as well?
It is, and I'm very fortunate. I got sober when I was 32. I'm 70 now. So I've lived 38 years of learning how to reinvent myself and how to experience. There's nothing that I want to live a long, long time. But if I were to die tomorrow, I'd be done. I would say, I tell people I'm overpaid in every area of life because guys like you and me and women like Michelle, we don't live. We don't live to tell stories. We don't live. The majority of we're statistics. We're not stories of recovery, right? And we have to understand that. And your listening audience, if you're listening tonight and you're clean and sober, you are the exception. You're not the rule. Because the rule is people like you and me, we die. We die in a back alley, in a gunfight, in a bad drug deal. We die in prison. We die in a car accident. We die. But we, listening audience, you and me and Michelle, we are examples of what can happen if we're willing to surrender and learn how to live one day at a time.
Yeah, and I forget that sometimes. Sometimes I'm in my sobriety, my life has improved. I've almost been sober for 5 years now,
Yeah.
and I can get caught up in daily stress. Oh, I'm working too much this week. Oh, I have too much homework, like things like that. And I forget like when I was desperate for change, and it's funny because I always have to be reminded. That's what the meetings do a lot for me too, as well, is I get to hear that it's still bad out there. It's still dangerous. It's still chronic. It's not going away. I have to deal with this.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to get into the next one. It says, how do you maintain sobriety after treatment?
There's not just one thing. One of the person who asked this question, they said they revealed themselves. They said, I asked the question because there's a cliche in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's meeting makers make it, right? And they said, I used to go to meetings all the time and I still relapse. And I asked them, did you read the big book? No. Did you get a sponsor? No. Did you work with others? No. Did you surrender? No. What the hell's a meeting? A meeting is just for a place for you to show up. If we're not doing these other things, you know what? And Drew, this is a great question. And Michelle and I had a conversation about it because we consider a cake. Name me one recipe that only requires one ingredient. You can't,
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a trick question. And that's the same way with recovery. I'm going to own it. I need a number of different things in my life. I need accountability. I need the social dynamic, the fellowship of the program. I need to become a student of the first 164 pages. At 38 years sobriety, 38 and a half, I still have a sponsor. And matter of fact, when you and I see each other, going to be January 17th. Matter of fact, I need to talk to you about going into a treatment center with me on the Thursday and Friday, the 16th and the 17th. He'll have 45 years. So I still have a sponsor. I still call him every week. I go to meetings. I go to treatment centers. I read the big book. I do a lot of different things. I fellowship, with individuals who are like-minded. So I still do a number of things because recovery, and you have found this in your journey as well. And that's exactly what it is. It's a journey. It's not a destination. There's never a point where we arrive and we say, okay, I'm done. I wash my hands of this. I can go and do whatever I want to do. I can be as stupid as. No, I still need those things in my life. They may have shifted, but just like, unless you're riding a unicycle, even a motorcycle has two wheels. All vehicles have at least four wheels, right? And we need to keep them aligned. We need to keep them rotated. We need to keep the treadwear even So it takes all four tires in a traditional standard vehicle to drive down the road. You know if you get a flat tire, right? And one of the great things, even in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I know this is a long answer, but you asked me, so you know me, bro. It's going to be a long answer. Uh, they talk about the fellowship of the program, about a great liner. One moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steers the captain's table. And then it says, it's talking about the fellowship. It said, that in itself would have not held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact is that we have discovered a common solution, which are the 12 steps in the plan of recovery. So even there, suggesting that it's a fellowship and it's a plan of recovery. The plan of recovery, the fellowship is inclusive. It's you and me. It's getting along. It's Michelle. It's getting together. It's having a powwow. It's agreeing. It's a meeting. That's the fellowship. But the plan of recovery is the first 164 pages in all 12 steps and everything that's incorporated, admitting, going to God, asking to have the defects of character removed, the shortcomings, saying I'm sorry, working step 10 every day, going to God in step 11, and then practicing those principles by working with another alcoholic. So it's a number of different things we do simultaneously. They just seem seamless.
Yeah. And I love that you talked about, I used to look at treatment like kind of graduating. I would go to treatment. I'm like, okay, everything that I need to learn in order to maintain sobriety. This is why I'm going to treatment. This is why I'm going for a full 90 days. That's a long time. There's something I'm going to learn in this 90 days. They are going to teach me how to handle life sober. And I had it wrong because I would walk out of there, and after drinking and using for 14 years, I was not going to get all the information that I needed to maintain a lifetime of sobriety in 90 days. I needed a program. I needed something that I was going to do on a daily basis. So I love how you answered that, Robert.
Thank you.
All right, let's see what the next one is here. Oh, I added this one. How do you know if you need treatment?
If you think you need treatment, you probably do. And and I like what it says in the big book. It says that we can't diagnose any alcoholic. On page 30 of the big book, it said we had to concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholics. So I can look at your life, or you could look at my life, and you could say, man, you are a drunk. Boy, you need some freaking help. That that's that's obviously was true, right? I needed help. My dad dropped me off at the Red Butler Motel in Las Vegas where I got sober on 15th and Fremont. If any of your listening audience is familiar with Las Vegas, it's not a very, pretty shady place. Its nickname was Heroin Heights. And dropped me off at the Red Butler Motel and said to me, your mother and I aren't going to watch you die. That's what my dad said. And then he turned around and walked away. You know what I did? I went across the street and got drunk. He could think all the things. I had a boss who fired me, who said, you drink too much, you're fired. My wife wouldn't let me back in. She said, you drink too much, you can't be around us anymore. Brothers and sisters, everyone was saying, you drink too much, you drink too much. You know what I did? I went and got drunk. That's what we do. So and I walked back, this was after a 71-day relapse, 71 days sober, then I relapsed. And I sat in that hotel room, and I knew right then and there, when I went back April 25th, 1986, that I had to concede to my innermost self that I was alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. So unless a person's ready to admit to step one, they don't stand a chance of doing the rest of the steps which get them well. So everyone needs to pronounce themselves an alcoholic, a drug addict, a compulsive overeater, a compulsive gambler, a sexually addicted person. Everyone has to admit that their life is unmanageable in this way. If you can't admit that your life is unmanageable, you're not done. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I always say it's the one disease that has to be self-diagnosed.
Yeah, it's the only disease known to man that will tell you you don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't ever hear of a cancer patient saying, I don't have cancer, I don't have cancer, I don't have cancer. They say, where's the chemo? Where's the radiation? We say, I'm not an alcoholic. You can say, you can call me whatever you want to call me. I'm just going to go get drunk.
Oh, I was willing to have you can give me any diagnosis, I don't care. You could say I'm insane, crazy, depressed, anxious, I have mental issues. I didn't care what it was as long as it wasn't alcoholic, because then I knew that I would have to do something about it.
Yeah, exactly. Once we admit it, and that's a great point, Drew. Once we admit whatever condition we are, we have a responsibility to do something about it.
Yeah. I want to get into this next one here. It says, what are other methods besides AA?
You know, there's yoga, there's fit to recover, there's rational emotive therapy, there's EST, there's your local Catholic church. Every most every religious organization is going to have some type of recovery program. I know the LDS Church here in the Greater Salt Lake area has a program. Calvary Chapel, they have Celebrate Recovery. Um, you know, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. You know, for me, February 9th of 1986, when I first went into treatment, I just looked in the yellow pages. For some of those young listeners out there, there was actually a book that was called Yellow Pages, and you actually looked through them alphabetically and found what you wanted to find. And I searched for alcoholism, so when you're ready, I mean, because gosh, our alcoholism, our drug addiction, Drew, doesn't take us by surprise at all. Neither does it take anyone else. You know, when you were ready, did you have a problem finding a place?
Oh, it's all over now.
Yeah. Even back in 1986, I had to find a place who would say yes. I had to find a place to say yes. I didn't have a job, didn't have any money, didn't have insurance. So my challenge was a little bit more exhaustive, but there's a place out there. So the last thing a person wants to worry about is, where can I go get well? What we have to worry about is whether I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get well.
Yeah, and just knowing, look, like, am I ready to do this? Am
Yeah.
I willing to commit?
Yeah. I mean, treatment centers nowadays, it's like a Baptist church in Arkansas. They're just freaking everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, treatment centers are all over the place,
There's
and
a lot
there's
of money.
yeah, and there's meetings all over the place. There are people online. I mean, if you want to talk to someone who is sober, they are not hard to find. At least someone around, even online.
If you can't find a place to get sober, call Drew or me. We'll lead you in the right direction. And
Right.
if you don't call Drew or me or Michelle, then you don't want to get sober.
Yeah. I want to look at this next one. This is a good one. This is something that I made a post about not too long ago. It says, "Do you ever miss your old lifestyle?"
No. You know, I've really searched this question out a lot. Drew, I don't remember. There might have been moments where I had fun, but I burnt my life to the ground in every important way to me. Drew, I'd lost everything more than once. I mean, how many times did you try to get sober? Man, I heard part of your story. I don't know why your parents still liked you, let alone loved you. You know, just think of the disappointment. I hear a lot of times in the rooms, I'm a grateful alcoholic. I call BS on that. There's nothing I'm grateful about. I never want to romanticize burning my life to the ground. What's good about it? What tell me tell me a happy moment that resulted in a happy ending for you or anyone else out there. There's nothing good about being addicted the way you and I are addicted. There's nothing good about it whatsoever. It ends for people like you and me, it ends in destruction. When you hear Michelle's story, she destroyed her life. She gave away her kids. She did everything she could. I don't think Michelle could tell you one good element of her drinking and using career. There was nothing good about it. Nothing good about mine. And can you remember anything good?
No, I remember the only fun that I remember was in the very, very beginning, and that was over so fast,
Yeah.
and then it was just straight pain, and I like that you mentioned when people say, "Oh, I'm such a grateful alcoholic or addict," and my thing is, I'm grateful there's a solution, but I'm grateful that there's a way out, but I would never wish addiction or alcoholism on anyone. I mean,
No.
the things you have to go through, the pain, it's like I'm not happy I had to go through all that. I am happy at the end of the day that there's a way out.
Yeah, and that's a great point because I'll often tell people, I'm not grateful I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful I'm a treated alcoholic. There's a difference between I'm happy I found the rooms or the rooms found me of Alcoholics Anonymous because I realized what was wrong. And once I knew what was wrong and you had a solution to make it right, I was all in. I was, show me where the deep end of the pool is because baby, I'm diving. I'm diving like water's going to save my life. The more wet I get, the better I'm going to live. And that's been true, man. I I was so fortunate, Drew, getting sober in Las Vegas. I man, I had some legends talk me how to get sober and how to stay sober and how to I have friends, man, sober 45 years, 42 years, 43 years, 45 years. I had just buried a friend of mine in California. He was Chuck C, sober 50 years. 50 freaking years, and he was my friend. And I thought, man, I want to be like this guy. I don't want to be dead, but I want to be 50 years sober. I want to live another 12 years to get that 50-year chip. I want the chip with the L on it, man. That's me right there. That will make me happy. But nothing about my drinking or drugging. None of the people I disappointed, I would ever go back and say, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I drank to harm you the way I harmed you.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Let me see what this next one is. It says, oh, I like this one. How do you go about explaining your substance abuse struggles to new romantic partners?
You know, well, I've been married almost over 35 years, so I'm not able to find any new romantic partners. That's a rule of the marriage. Uh, in the beginning, that was really helpful. I was really committed to my sobriety. And when I met Laura, the only successful relationship I've ever had, we've been married over 35 years now, and she's my third marriage. Get an idea of how well recovery and marriage work. It works really pretty good. Everything changes when the husband's sober. or the spouse is sober. Anyway, when I met Laura, I was 2.5 years into my recovery. Laura was so encouraged that I was a man who did not drink or did not use. She knew I was a guy who was always going to show up. She came from a background that men didn't always show up. Men were mean. Mom walked out on her, right? Because of addiction, because of alcoholism, and because of the unevenness regardless of whether the person that you're raised by is alcoholic or not, families are upside down. They're dysfunctional families, and when that significant other finds out that you're on a path to getting better one day at a time for the rest of your life, you're pretty attractive, you know. And if you're not attractive, you need to just move on. They're not the right person for you, because one of the things that I have found is both people need to be going in the same direction at the same time. So Laura, when we met, she didn't know much about recovery because she was a drinker. She's still a drinker, but she knew what I was committed to. And I didn't keep her from doing her. I was just going to do me. And Laura's not an alcoholic, even though she drinks. Alcohol's not the problem. You know that. Alcohol's not the problem. Alcoholism. Now that's another conversation, right? But if alcohol was the problem, then everyone who drank would be in treatment. And we know that's not true. So I think if you're confident in yourself, first of all, if you're new, why are you in a relationship anyway, right? There's an unwritten rule that says don't get in a new relationship for 1 year. So what the hell are you doing, right? Are you trying to be somebody that we told you better be careful? It's not to say that any relationship you're in prior to a year is doomed, but when I focus on pleasing another person, it's a distraction for the steps. And for a newcomer, any distraction from the steps, any distraction from the sponsor, any distraction whatsoever is a slippery slope. I start caring about another person more than I care about my wellness. That's a danger sign. So my question would be, what are you doing in a relationship anyway? But if you are, be the best version of you that you can possibly be. Learn how not to be selfish and self-centered, and that person will admire you rather than ask you to get drunk with them. And if they do, run the other way as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that. It's like find someone who is supportive. If they're trying to get you to drink with them, they're not the person for you. And when you were talking about people having relationships early on in sobriety, and I kind of learned this years back from my own experience, because I got in a relationship right after rehab, and what started to happen is all of my focus and energy that was
Yeah.
going into doing the steps, getting a fellowship around me, getting healthy, changing my habits, that energy started to go into the relationship. And I always kind of tell people, look, if you're in early sobriety and you're in a relationship, you can probably handle it when it's going well, but what's going to happen when it's not going well?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
All right, let me see what we got here. We're getting kind of towards the end. How do you deal with family and friends that still drink or use? And then after that, it says, how do you cope with that?
It's really a rough one because they're family and we want to be around them. And in some cases, it's where our warm bed lives, right? And so sometimes we're thrust back into that environment, and you have to, I had to understand my motive, and motives are a big deal. Motives why I'm doing something, motives why I'm not doing something. So the motive for being involved with them uh, is is varies from person to person, from family member to family member. There are going to be some family members that are just too much of a slippery slope, and you need to stay away from them as if they were a drinking buddy in a bar. They weren't family. Some days, sometime soon, 6 months, a year, whatever, maybe you can resume the relationship with them. But be honest where possible. Don't offend them. Just let them know that you're not stable. You're not. And you need to just back up for a minute. You hope to resume. You love them very much. You hope to have a relationship with them down the road. But just sort of as graceful as possible, bow out. There are some people, and most people will understand, because most people, those loved ones who matter, they've watched you struggle. Even though they haven't struggled, they've watched you struggle. They've watched you for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years burn your life to the ground repeatedly to the point where they're amazed that you're even alive. If not alive, not in jail for the rest of your life, right? Then, check it out. There are people who don't want you to get well. And these are the saddest family members of all. And we've known them. Michelle has known them. You've had them exhibit in your own life. I've had them. They don't want me to get well because my wellness interrupts their illness. And the brighter my light gets, the darker their darkness becomes. And if they're not ready to have that darkness exposed, they're not ready for my light. So they'll try to sabotage me into relapsing so they can say, see, you're just like me. You're not better than me. You think you're better than me. You're not better than me because now you're drunk. Now you're high. Now you're doing whatever. So we have to be very careful as to, and you know what, Drew, you bring up a good point. That's a great question because that's where sponsorship really comes into play. That's where a sponsor man, my sponsor, Jack, he was my sponsor for 33 years before he died of cancer. He was so instrumental to me. And so were a couple other guys, Scotty and Will and Buddy, Buddy and Eddie. I'd say, should I go to work here? Should I go to work there? Should I hang out with this person? Should I hang out? And they said, well, why would you do it? Why would you not? Why would you do it? Tell me what this is about. Even when I was moving to California, going to go back with family members, wanted to leave Las Vegas and move back to Southern California. My sponsor, we laid out a plan. So sponsorship, if you're new or relatively new to the program of recovery, find a sponsor. Go find, if you're a girl, if you're a woman, go find a woman. If you're a man, go find a man. Say, help me, because I'm not sure that I can make it without help. And let them share their experience because, Drew, we've all gone through the same thing. There's nothing I'm saying that Michelle hasn't experienced, I've experienced, that you've experienced, that everyone in the room hasn't experienced. And everyone with a little bit of time, by the way, congratulations on coming up on 5 years. That's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And there's nothing we haven't experienced, or we know someone who's experienced it. So we go to that person and we say to him or her, when you experience this, what did you do? How did you handle it? And I'm going through this right now, and I need your guidance. Would you help direct my life?
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned too, not everyone is going to like the fact that we get sober.
Yeah.
You don't hear that a lot, but that's so interesting. I like how you put that.
Thank you.
All right, we got 2 more. Second
Let's
to
do it.
last. Are 0% mocktails / beers okay? So I guess non-alcoholic beers.
Well, you do you, right? What's your motive? I was never a foo-foo drink guy, so I'm not going to start now, right? Beer, for me, the only reason beer was even palatable was because it it served to chase down good scotch, right? I'm a Boilermaker guy. Everything I drank for effect. Everything. Alcohol, I drank alcohol because it served a purpose. It put to sleep things that made me feel uncomfortable. So, if you want to, if you want to roll those dice, roll those dice. Do I recommend it? No. If you want to, because beer doesn't taste good anyway. Beer is, I mean, it's an anesthetic. It, it, when you drink a beer, the first thing it does when it touches your taste buds is puts them to sleep. So the second beer tastes more smooth. That's what beer does. It's alcohol. It puts to sleep nerve endings. I mean, it was the main anesthesia from 1840 to 1962 or whatever it was. Ether. It's a gas form of ethyl alcohol. It's alcohol in a gas form, and they put it over a meth, have you count backwards to 10, and they put you to sleep. They would suspend you between death and involuntary muscle reaction. And that's where the anesthesiologist would just suspend you there so you wouldn't die. So don't even tell me. So to me, for me, drinking mocktails and non-alcoholic beer is a way of cheating when there's so many. I mean, for Christ's sake, drink a root beer for crying out loud. You know, drink flavored water if you want something sweet. You know, I mean, if you can do it and stay sober, you can do it and stay sober. I don't want to roll those dice, so I don't. Is there anything wrong with them? For me, yeah. And for many people, yeah. If you do you, if you can stay sober, I got no problem with it.
Yeah, for me, I never tried any of them because, like you mentioned, like, I drank for effect, and those things don't have the effect that I want, so I
Yeah.
really don't waste my time. I could see how, those that got sober super young and are around maybe their young friends wanna hold on to one or something and not feel as awkward when they first get sober, something like that, but for me, I never really went down that road.
I think
Alright. Oh, yeah,
I
go ahead.
just one more thing. I think the closer we stand to the edge, the greater chance of falling is. And I think having a drink that mimics what we used to drink, it just doesn't have the alcohol. Eventually, it's probably going to have alcohol. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point, that's a good way to put it. Alright, let's see. We got our last one. How do you handle cravings or impulses early in recovery? And then it says when you're by yourself.
Okay, I remember this question, and when I get this question, because it's not uncommon for Michelle and me to get this question, we have to understand the difference between craving and obsession. Only when I'm using do I crave. When I'm clean and sober, it's the obsession. I don't crave anything that's not in my system. I only crave, and that's the phenomenon of craving. That's the thing that will never leave me. So what I recover from is the mental obsession. So I answered this question as if it was a mental obsession, not a craving. So how do I handle the mental obsession? I work the steps. I redirect my thinking. I understand that I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable. Step one is the only step I need to do to perfection. I need to be convinced that any alcohol in my system whatsoever is tantamount to taking my 9 millimeter, sticking it to my head, and pulling the trigger. It will kill me. I'm convinced. I know what those guns do. And Drew, I know what a drink does. So I don't fantasize on it. That's one of the reasons, Drew, earlier question, what's good about your drinking? Nothing. Nothing ever came good for me drinking then, and nothing will ever come good for my drinking now. You want to destroy my marriage? Give me a drink. You want my grandchildren, 10 of them, who's never seen me drunk? Give me a drink. They'll see me drunk. You want to You want to, my 3 of my kids have never seen me drunk. 1 drink, and I'm off to the races. I will never forget that I'm powerless over alcohol, that my life had become a mess. So I never romanticize it. Sex was never better. I was never a better dancer. I was never better looking. I was never taller. I was never anything that I thought I was because of the alcohol I consumed. And nothing changed then, and nothing will change now. So my mental obsession, I switched my thinking. It says an entire psychic change. And it said the very same person who seemed doomed now finds himself easily able to control that mental obsession, control his desire, the mental obsession, his desire for alcohol. The only requirement necessary is to follow a few simple rules. When I read that, you know what my question was? What are the rules? Tell me what the rules are, because I never want to be that person. I don't want to die, Drew. I never wanted to die. I just didn't know how to live. And Alcoholics Anonymous and programs like them taught me how to live one day at a time. And I'm happy, I'm joyous, and I'm free. And I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. Do you know, to wake up in the same bed every day and not wonder where my car is? Or walking to work. You know, you still work. I'm mostly retired. You never walk into work and say, did I cuss my boss out yesterday? Is he going to fire me? They're so glad when you're there, because they know
That's
what
so
you're going to do.
funny. Oh yeah, just the stuff that like a lot of us don't even remember. You could have a huge fight with your boss and like huge blowout fight. They could fire you, you know, and you're in a blackout, and the next day you walk in and the guy's like, "Why the hell are you here?"
Yeah, yeah. Like the Seinfeld episode when George quit. You know, oh, that was nothing. You believe that? Oh, forget it. You know.
Hey, thank you so much, Robert. Always love having you on here.
It's a blast, Drew. I'm so glad that we're friends.
Yeah, man. I appreciate everything. So cool to know you. You get all the experience, wisdom, friendship, man. You're awesome. Thank you for coming on. Where do people find you at? I know on Instagram we got Recovery Guy. You want to just tell them again where they can find you at?
Yeah. All of my podcasts and all of my blogs are on recoveryguy.org, recoberygui.org. I can't believe that was available 8 years ago when I first established that. So recoveryguy.org. They can find me on YouTube, and all my podcasts are there. It's Real Recovery Guy. And then on podcast channels, Recovery Guy Podcast. And you can find everything there. And of course, you can find me on the Sober Fix podcast with my buddy Drew. And I really enjoy this. I really thank you. I'm so glad that you and I met. You know, you're the kind of person, Drew, that an old timer like me loves to invest in, because you're the future of recovery. And men and women like you, like Michelle, I can't invest enough in, because, you know, I mean, sooner rather than later, I'm not going to be here anymore. Just like my sponsor and other people, other men and women who've gone before me. And there's going to be guys like you and gals like Michelle who were left carrying the mantle, carrying the message, and investing in you is just a joy to me.
Thank you so much, Robert. I look forward to speaking with you and Michelle soon, and meeting up with you in January, man.
That'll be great. I look forward to it.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks.
All right. You made it through another episode. Thanks again. And if you'd like to collaborate or come on the show, please email me at thesoberfixpodcast@gmail.com. Have a great day.